Hello and welcome to Is This the Norm? Please like, follow, share. We're on Instagram and Facebook and all the other podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Amazon Music. You name it, we should be there.
This is eldest Rebecca. In today's episode, we will be talking about what has been referred to by some as the Citrini Scenario. I actually first read about this in my Kalshi app, where there was an option to put some money on whether this would come true or not. And as of right now, in May of 2026, Kalshi had a 24% chance of this actually happening. So I was like, I probably need to go research this, and because it kind of just a brief Google search on this, and it sounds kind of like a doomsday scenario. So I'm like, is this really realistic? So here's the result of that research for anyone who is interested, which everyone should definitely be interested in this. So the Citrini Scenario is actually, it was kind of like a thought experiment by Citrini Research and Alap Shah that explores the possibility of an AI-driven economic collapse. So the report they refer to as a macro memo is titled The 2028 Global Intelligence Crisis. And this was a big deal. Like there was multiple news sources that talked about this, brought it up. The stock market actually lost quite a bit of points when this came out. So this was a big deal. But I wanted to know, who are these people that wrote this macro memo? Citrini Research is an independent investment research firm. They're known for focusing on like megatrends like AI, robotics, GLP-1 drugs, modern warfare events, and how that affects global macro trading. Alap Shah, who co-authored this macro memo, is a Harvard graduate. He's got a degree in economics. He's basically a professional investor, and he worked for like some of the big, most prominent hedge fund companies. He started his own hedge fund and built an AI financial search engine that centralized data gathering from various financial applications and websites that they use for their investment research. It increased the number of clients that his small team could handle by a lot, by streamlining the research, making AI do the work. It was so successful that he sold this business to a competitor for $200 million in 2022. So this guy knows AI, the markets, and economics. So let's delve into what this macro memo was and said. It was a 3-part report that discusses AI and its potential impact on the global economy. So in the first part, he explains, before he goes into the, dire scenarios, my warning should not have you mistake me for an AI doomer. AI is humanity's Promethean moment, fire stolen at last from the gods. Its capabilities put us less than a generation away from abundant living standards for all, limitless clean energy, and eradication of most diseases. Our challenge is not the technology itself, but rather surviving the severe economic shock of its arrival and requiring a rewiring of our financial system. So in 2025, AI moved past the simple chatbots that we've all become accustomed to. When companies began using AI for complex workflows, they called this agentic AI. Some examples of this are companies that are using autonomous customer support agents that resolve customer issues, AI software engineers that write and debug code, and AI research agents that analyze market data or analyze supply chains. This is because there are certain roles and tasks that AI agents just do better than humans, like data analytics, data migration, design roles, pattern recognition, and complex modeling. And new examples of AI superiority are added every day. So, like in healthcare, AI has shown to produce higher accurate results of diagnosing patients than the professionals, like doctors. Plus, AI doesn't sleep or take time off. So, Citrini Research.
I must be related then. I don't sleep or take time off either. So
Yeah, you're a robot. Citrini wrote, it's not the only company or expert to talk about AI in a somewhat alarming manner, at least during the transition. Many others have as well. In February of this year, the CEO of Microsoft AI said, white collar work while you're sitting down at a computer, either being a lawyer or an accountant or a project manager or a marketing person, most of those tasks will be fully automated by an AI within the next 12 to 18 months. So every business in the world is continually trying to operate their companies in the most efficient manner that yields the highest profits. Companies are not going to choose not to utilize AI. If they do, they're not going to remain competitive. So most companies are well aware of this. It's the norm at this point for them. So they are adopting
It's the
AI
norm for us.
agents.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
use it. Not like, I could get into a whole thing for legal reasons on what we call AI hallucinations, and maybe you'll get into that. But, non-legal documents that I'm filing in court, we use a lot of it. But when it comes to legal documents that you're filing in court, you'll get AI hallucinations where it cites cases or quotes cases incorrectly, and attorneys are getting huge sanctions for doing that. So that's kind of like where you have people like me in the attorney world, like, yeah, you can use it. It can really, really help. It does. Like, I could go on line item things that have been streamlined because of AI. But yeah, it's not perfect, and maybe it will be perfect someday, but definitely is it not as far as the legal world goes.
I mean, we all know, like we've all looked stuff up and I'm like, that's not right. But this is assuming that's temporary because it's continually learning at an exponential rate. So those mistakes, someday they'll all be gone because it's learning and it learns better than us and it doesn't forget things. You know what I mean? So that's just a temporary thing, I think. But yeah, it's not perfect right now, but it will be someday. And companies are they're having this big have spend all these have huge spending budgets to implement these AI agents to remain competitive. So historically, technological innovations have eliminated jobs, but then they created new and different jobs. For example, computers replaced switchboard operators, typists, many bank tellers through ATMs were lost, and most travel agents. But this created software engineers, IT support staff, content creators, and many, many more jobs. So this is just one example of this, happening again and again. And many assume that AI will be exactly the same. However, AI is very different from any previous technological advance because AI manages itself. It makes itself more efficient. It learns, AI learns and gets more efficient on its own without human intervention. So there is a difference there. And AI will create new jobs where a human is coordinating, it's steering at a high level or directing it based on the company's needs. But the number of roles created is projected to be very minimal compared to the roles that will become obsolete because of it. So, and the more importantly, the jobs that are at risk are all no, I don't shouldn't say all, but most of them are white collar jobs. And white collar jobs represent about half of the American economy because the top 10% of earners, they account for about 50% of consumer spending in the United States. So the top 20% account for about 65%. So, and these are basically all white collar workers, and they're the people who buy the houses, the cars, the vacations, the restaurant meals, the private school tuition, the home renovations, that they fuel a lot of the economy. So that's important for what we talk about in a little bit from now. Of course, it will not be just white collar workers who will be affected because those white collar workers buy a lot of products and services which they will no longer be able to afford to buy because they don't have jobs. So this would affect all aspects of the economy. Massive white collar job losses means people cannot pay their mortgages, which could lead to another housing crisis, worse than anything we've seen previously. Because, like 2008, the subprime mortgage fiasco, those mortgages were bad on day one. Those people could not afford those mortgages. They shouldn't have gotten them. In this case, the mortgages for the white collar people who would lose their jobs, they are good on day one. but now they're bad. And there's a lot of them that are bad. So that's just one of the things that could happen. Um, there's actually a South Park episode titled Deep Learning, where Randy Marsh is talking to his daughter, Shelly, and he says, AI can do everything better than we can, except for stuff that requires arms. I don't want you to end up a deadbeat loser who goes to college, Shelley. Need to stay out of school. Instead, go out and be taught real skills that will still be profitable in this post AI universe. So, what you do is you take out your phone and you call the handyman and see if those rich people will have any internships or training programs available for you. And this episode was from 2023. So, before this was just chatbots basically that were the big thing at this point in time. But I am a South Park fan, and they do make connections that other people don't in a funny way, but it's still an analytical process for them to think of these things. So I don't know. I like it. But there's other things that were part of this macro memo, which one of them was a feedback loop with no natural break. So this is kind of like an economic concept. So just go through it really quick and just kind of cover it in a summarized manner. Basically, AI gets better and cheaper. Companies lay off workers, use the money to save to buy more AI, which leads to more workers getting laid off, which leads to laid off workers spending less. Companies sell less things to consumers, invest in AI to protect their profit margin, which means AI gets better and cheaper. Cycle is perpetuated. As the AI infrastructure grows, overall spending on people and other operating costs lessen. So, what happens when white collar workers get laid off? They try to find similar jobs. But if those jobs are no longer available, they will look for lower paying service sector jobs or gig economy jobs. And for us old people, gig economy jobs are short-term task-based or freelance positions that you get from like apps or online platforms. So, rideshare drivers through Uber, pet sitting through Rover, tutoring, graphic designer designing through Fiverr. Entry into these jobs is relatively easy right now, and many can make money doing them, but they don't pay that great. And more people, you know, doing those services that weren't doing them before means, the willing to do them means less and less wages for everybody doing those jobs. So it's just, compression. And this is assuming some of those jobs have not also been replaced by AI, which they will be. Many companies around the world, as we know, are working on autonomous delivery and self-driving vehicles. So it's only a matter of time before that's a thing because, again, AI teaches itself. So it will figure this out. Obviously, this will not just affect America. After this research paper came out, everyone began looking and discussing India's IT sector because global companies have been taking advantage of India's cheap IT labor for many years now. However, AI agents will replace most of those IT workers because it will be even cheaper. The IT sector in India represents all of their country's surplus, meaning those jobs bring in the most money to India from countries outside of India. It's like $200 billion annually. So India like looked at this and they're worried and think that this is a very real possibility. In a nutshell, AI gets better and better. Workers earn less, mortgages go into default, financial systems tighten, asset prices fall like houses, consumer confidence collapses, spending drops, more layoffs, which leads to more of the same through a perpetuating cycle. So, the government's usual tools to stem inflation and employment, they might not work. It's doubtful that anyone in government is looking at this to ensure that they have a solution when the time comes. Our governments, whether we're talking about federal, state, or local, they're reactive. They're not proactive. When's the last time a government saw something coming and prepared for it?
Um,
Not.
just this sucks. All of what you're saying sucks, and it's sad and depressing. Can you tell me it's going to get better? Is there some positives about AI?
Well, I mean, the three-part thing that the guy that co-authored it, Alap Shah, the first part was like, he's like, I'm just saying this is what could happen, and AI is a good thing, but this transition might be a terrible thing for a lot of people. You know, and then he's talking about, like, this is the things that could happen in part 2, and then part 3 is like, this is what we can do, this is what governments can do, start doing now to prevent from being as bad as it will be. Now, I think it's very optimistic to assume somebody in government is looking this that actually
Exactly.
has the power to talk about this. And the thing is this isn't just one government we're talking about either. This is cities, counties,
Yeah,
states,
there's no hope in that. Leaning on a
right?
government to do what's right.
I mean,
I
the
want some real
best
hope here, Rebecca, like
well,
something
I
solid.
mean, if somebody could figure it out and start working on this now and set a good example, then, everybody would maybe fall in line, because that has happened before. But um, yeah, the pandemic, like, just for example, the pandemic resulted in huge job losses. And mostly among the lower wage earners because of the massive decline of, like, the service sector businesses like hotels, travel, tourism, restaurants. The government stepped in and sent checks to help those people. And it was a massive stimulus spending, and it did help them and contributed. But, it contributed to the government debt that is still excessively high even today. Like, we just keep contributing to it and no plan to reduce it. Well, the Citrini scenario, government revenues declined substantially because we're talking about higher earners at this point. So, the job losses might be concentrated in the upper income levels, meaning monetary help becomes less and less until they figure out a different taxing methodology. So, the first part of the paper, Alap Shah says the societal risks of this transition are simply too massive to ignore. Even if there is a 10% chance of this specific crisis materializing, the downside is severe enough that we must start a society-wide dialogue now. So, the people in power, they should be looking at this now, but they're probably not. Many economists, they push back. So they read this and they're like, this is wild. This isn't going to happen. And the reason why this isn't going to happen is because, this has happened before. They've used past and current technological advances to refute the research that they brought forward. But I kind of agree in a way with their counter to that is that AI advancements, they're not like any other technological advancement in history because of the autonomous and exponential nature of it. Like, AI's impact is evolving much faster than previous technological revolutions, with the capabilities expanding faster than comprehension. It's not advancing at human speed, it's advancing at machine speed.
Honestly, before you just started saying everything that you were saying, I just assumed that myself. I'm like, the automated tellers at Walmart, the self checkout, people were worried about jobs, and it always seems to work out. But I guess I had never really considered that AI is different in that way, that it's getting better and better, and it doesn't need as much human intervention, if any at all, to keep going. That's
Well,
just
yeah.
not something I even, because I'm not very technological anyway. And I think a lot of people are like me in that. And we just assume.
Yeah, and, it's not saying that that isn't still a possibility, that it does advance at the same, basically the same pace as prior technological advances, but there is the possibility that it doesn't. That, it learns so fast that we can't even keep up with it. So this is just a possibility. You know what I mean? This isn't like this is going to happen. This is just a logical possibility so that we
Sure,
should
but
all be
something
aware
to
of.
consider for sure, right? Like,
Right.
we need to consider this.
Yeah, and that's why I'm bringing this up because I didn't know anything about this. And yeah, we think about it, but I kind of assumed, like you, Laura, like it's just another technology that's going to come along and change everything. But the way that it's happening is a little scary for the reasons I've said before. So, like, for example, this paper that got everybody talking, affected the stock market and everything, it was published in February of 2026. When that happened, I was just happened to, like, be paying, like, I was kind of like doing a little bit of day trading at the time and looking at stocks a lot. And like the stocks, like a lot of the big tech stocks that are different, that are not AI, that AI could easily replace in the minds of some people, they tanked. Like they went, they tanked that day. That's how this paper affected the stock market. Now, the president sneezes and the stock market could go one way, never another. So that's not, something by itself, but it made me like want to look into it. So this paper was published in February of 2026. In March and April of this year, 2026, AI was the single leading reason cited by companies for job cuts. In April specifically, AI related job cuts accounted for more than a quarter of the about 88,000 layoffs that were announced by companies. That's not the companies that don't make these announcements, like smaller ones either. So it's probably a lot bigger than that. The roles that were mainly targeted, with AI being at the top of the list for why it happened, were like entry level and middle management roles in finance, media, and tech. So this is going to affect, I'm sure it already
That's
is.
a lot of jobs.
It is a lot of
A
jobs.
lot. Like I was like, and you said that was in one day?
April of this year.
April in a month. 88,000 jobs went away.
Yeah. Now they went away for various reasons. And a lot of times,
Still a lot.
one company is laying off and another company is hiring because that company does it better. So, it's not all, but it's saying basically a quarter of these jobs. The company said it was because they are either not, they're not replacing positions when people leave as well, and that's not being announced. There's things like that happening right now. And
I mean,
I
that
mean, you
makes
guys
sense.
know from, I had a job that I hated. It was making me work 60, 70 hours a week, and I still wasn't getting done what needed to get done because we just kept losing people because it was not a very good company to work for. They just didn't know what they were doing. So I left that because I could, thankfully. We were in the position that I could leave that job without having another job. Um, I can't find another job. I'm in the accounting industry, and that is one of the big industries that is getting affected by AI. And it's not necessarily like people are firing, but they're not hiring people when they leave, and they are definitely using AI, agentic AI agents to reduce the number of people that can do these jobs because it's more efficient on a lot of things, like I said before. So I am definitely being affected by that. I mean, we've come up with an alternative plan and we're fine, but how many people are not going to be in that position?
Yeah, I always wonder how much it's going to affect the legal field because we just have, depending on what kind of attorney you are, like we litigate for a living, which means we take cases to court and, scheduling people and like I wonder like how AI could possibly do that because when you have lay witnesses is what we call them, people that don't have skin in the game but can testify on behalf of either party and coordinating that scheduling with them. Like we have a person like that's all they do is schedule our depositions, which is interviews under oath, schedule, me talking to them to kind of get what they know, getting people scheduled to go testify at trial, like those kinds of things. That's where my mind goes, how much, we can automate that through AI. And I wonder what that will look like someday. I mean, there's probably a way to do it, I'm sure, eventually. And then, like, that person's position at our firm, does it go away? You know what I mean?
There's probably, I mean, I'm probably not exaggerating. There's probably thousands of ways that will affect every industry. Like just yours, for example, Heather, your employment law. There's less, computers don't need employment law. So if the
Right.
workforce is drastically reduced, how many of you guys are put out of business? Like if
Mm-hmm.
that's your sole, I mean, I'm sure
Well,
there's attorneys out there that do a variety of things, but what if
yeah.
that's somebody's, there's a lot of attorneys out there that's their sole
Mm-hmm.
business. And
Right.
and it is a highly competitive field, right, Heather?
No, not for me. I have more work than I can.
Attorneys in general. I'm
Well,
saying
attorneys, depending on what kind of attorney you are. Like me, I'm in this weird subset. Like people don't do my job because it's
Yeah,
really
you're
freaking
niche-y.
hard.
Right.
The kind of work I do, like, but
Right.
personal injury, run of the mill of what we call ambulance chasers, like there's more attorneys than there is work. Like that's
Right.
super competitive. Like for Jed, I feel bad for him. But the difference between my cases and his is it's always a question of liability. They're just really hard cases and they just don't settle pre-suit. They just don't.
Right.
Because it's more cost efficient for them to fight me and see what happens versus knowing that there's no question of liability. And if we take it to a jury, how much money can you get for that car crash case or whatever, depending on the severity of the injuries, where mine, usually not a physical injury, but people do understand other injuries as like reputation and,
Right.
you lose money because you can't get a job because you're in a certain subset of, high, I don't know, like there's certain jobs out there where there's only so many jobs or positions in a certain radius in a county or a city or anything. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how to explain it without giving specific incidents of, type of people that, for like forensics, like a forensic lab technician.
Basically, you're saying like high ranking positions, the
Not even
top of
just
the
high
pyramid,
ranking.
that like there's not a lot of positions available, especially
Right.
if you want to stay locally to where you live, is what I'm understanding from what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think you're saying it right and it makes sense.
Yeah. So the damages are not always an injury, it's damages based on multiple factors. You know. So, anyways, yeah, what I do is kind of a weird. There's not a lot of us out there, at least in Washington State, that are doing employment law at the level that I'm doing it and know it as well as I do. I guess I'm not perfect. You never can learn everything as an attorney. It's why it's called the practice of law. There's a lot I don't know, but I do. I am like a bulldog, and once I get a hold of you, I'm not going to let go.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you specifically, maybe you're minimally affected, like, oh, it makes your small law firm more efficient that you hire one less person, so it's pretty negligible, but multiply that by how many law firms are there in the country, and then multiply it again by size. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
mean,
just
I'm all for
one
it.
industry.
Personalities in the workplace, that's the worst part of being an employer
Yeah.
is, yeah, it costs money, but mine is like wrangling people's, we're all so different, which I love. I love that people are different, but it's stressful to be the boss, right? Um, luckily
Yeah, and
I'm
they
not
don't
one of
like
those
you. Nobody
attorneys.
likes the boss, just so you
No.
know.
Yeah, nobody likes us. And change sucks. People hate change. They fight you on it. I mean, I've been in that position, so I've been on both sides of the fence. Sometimes it really sucks.
Well, sometimes as the employer, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place too.
Right.
It's not an easy position to be in.
No, because I
So
get
give
it.
yourself a little grace too.
I know. But sometimes I want to just, say, forget it all and blow
Yeah,
it
because
up.
it's
Be like,
just one more thing on top of working so many hours because you work for yourself, and being a mom on top of that, and just one more thing. Like owning your own business is just one more thing on top of one more thing on top of one more thing.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be one day where Jed and I are going to be fed up. Either we're going to sell the firm or, close the shop because we're good to go and we don't need to do it anymore. I don't know what that'll look like in the future. We are not there yet, unfortunately, but I'm waiting for the day to walk away to some extent.
Yeah,
When that
yeah,
day comes, can you just work one extra year and for me?
Sure, right.
Make me some money?
It'll be
Just
at
1 year. It's only
Starbucks.
1 year.
Starbucks or Subway.
yeah. So my takeaway from this is that we should all be aware of the impacts of AI. Pay attention to what's going on around you. AI is going to change our world. AI, though, may be a little rough or even devastating on a global scale. Maybe a little rough for some individuals or maybe devastating to some individuals. No one can predict the future, even the economists that think they're so smart and that they can. They can't. But just pay attention to what's going on in the world, and be prepared, because might be some big changes come down the road. Hopefully we do this transition, and the utopia that is forecasted in the long run because of AI, that, oh, none of us have to work, we can all just be creators. And who knows if that's actually going to happen? Doubtful. But it will change things. And I don't think that it's a pipe dream to assume that it's going to change things in a big way, because it will. And probably for the better in the long run, eventually. The transition to A, though, that is all.
Presume. Oh, sorry. Is that all? I was going to say, did they presume that people can build buildings that aren't AI?
Well, I mean, that's robotics, but
Yeah.
I think it kind of goes hand in hand that if AI, that's what that's the main takeaway, is AI is going to learn. Like, there's going to be those engineering firms that set that AI to task, and those robotic firms that set AI to task to build robots, to build, you know, the most structurally sound buildings, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's no part of our world that it can't touch and do better, except for digging ditches. That's human until they build the robot that can do that. Or, I mean, technically, they've already built the machine that does that wonderfully. So it's going to affect everything. It teaches itself, it learns, it will get better and better. And all these obstacles that are in the way of, oh my gosh, it just gave you the wrong answer, or the data centers take up too much power, et cetera, they're going to be resolved. But those might be the bottlenecks that make it so that it doesn't happen too fast.
Right. Makes sense. Like the ability's there, but the fuel to do it isn't quite there yet.
Yeah, it's how fast can we get through the other obstacles, just like how long did it take for the computers to get from being ginormous, taking up the size of a room, to, you know, our phones are even
Yeah. Holding it
smaller.
in your hand.
Right.
Pretty crazy. Yeah. I'm just hoping that if it gets too bad, I'll be dead by then.
Yeah, no, it's going to be before that. Even if it takes a little bit longer than they're saying, like maybe it's not 2028 that this happens, and maybe it happens more gradual so that these things don't compound. It's just a possibility, it's probably not going to happen, but it is affecting people now, like college graduates in certain fields, and people that, like me, that have left their jobs. We're having a difficult time finding either that starter job or that replacement job. It is happening 100% right now. Just not to the extent that, this report was talking about. They say this is an estimated time frame. They say that by 2028, these things are already in full swing, and our economy's not doing well because of it, basically.
Yeah, that's scary. Super scary.
I'm tired of living this life where our economy is always going up and down, like in our lifetime.
Yeah.
We've had so much struggle with that, like the Great Recession, COVID, AI. Like we just get hit after hit after hit. It's really difficult to trust an economy.
Yeah. Our economy is very untrustworthy.
It's
Agreed.
very fragile worldwide.
Well, yeah, and honestly, we're doing better than basically most first world countries at this point. I mean, we're doing better economically than most of Europe, um, most other places, period, in the world right now. And we think we're struggling. You know what I mean? And there is people struggling, absolutely, 100%. It is happening in America.
Well, just one depressing episode after another.
But I mean, I don't know if this is something that I will live to see, but it is kind of cool to think, like, we're not all about work, 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 work in the future someday. That's what could happen. That's the good future that we see with AI, is AI does the stuff that nobody wants to do, and then we redistribute the wealth. How we get there, that's going to be the hard part, the transition. So,
Yeah, that's interesting. Never. Yeah, because that's what my thought is like economically, that's where my mind goes. Like if something that's not human is doing everything, what does that look like for us? Like, does it become across the board everybody lives the same type of life, or is there still capitalism? Like, that's what I wonder.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the AI companies, of course, they're like coming up with the quote unquote solutions, are like, oh, reduced work week. Well, that's in the beginning. I guess that might be a thing, but are you going to pay them the same as you were paying them for the full work week? You know what I mean? And then the taxing, like one of the things, I can't remember if it was this paper. I think it was this paper, the part 3, where he's talking about some, quote unquote solutions, was rather than, changing our where we put the highest taxes out. And instead of being on individuals, these companies, since they're no longer employing people, they have AI. Well, that should be where most of the taxing is at that company level where the AIs are doing the work. Well, then you pay more taxes because humans aren't doing the work. Because that's the only way to make sure that the wealth is basically redistributed.
Because, our politicians do such a good job of that.
I mean, if you can't, most of the money comes from income taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So if the income is being generated by robotics or AI, you have to change the taxing structure. It can't do an income tax anymore. And I don't know, I'm not the answer because I'm not an economist or in government, but where's the smart people, looking at this and coming up with a methodology? Because somebody should be doing it.
We can hope, but are we a preventative society? No, we're a reactive
No,
society.
I think, yeah, and humans in general are more reactive than proactive.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, me in my personal life, I'm not proactive ever with anything. That's tomorrow's problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then it's our nature.
It
right.
is not even just our nature, but I think it's our culture.
Yeah, I
That's our
agree.
culture.
So keep an eye out for it. Watch the news once in a while, people. It's
Yeah.
important. Just once in a while. I know it's
Just once in
depressing
a while.
sometimes,
It is.
but keep track of
Go
what's
buy a
going
whole
on.
bunch of bags of beans and rice.
And bricks.
There's Grandpa.
Grandpa said bricks. Bricks are
is
going to be
true.
valuable.
Well,
Apocalypse.
20 years from now, we'll be like, he was right.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. He was right about a lot of things that I pushed
Mhm.
back on him.
Highly
Or-
intelligent. Underestimated
Funny.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Oh, Grandpa.
We miss our grandpa. We
We
talk about
do.
him a lot. Obviously,
I
we
know.
miss him.
Mhm.
He's pretty great. If you ever, it's unfortunate that more people didn't get to know him because he's pretty awesome.
Yeah, because he was awesome, but he was also a hermit.
That's what I was just
Exactly.
thinking.
I was talking about him to one of my friends, and I was like, oh, yeah, Grandpa, he was always right where you left him. You could always
Right.
go find him on his farm.
Yep. So thank you all for joining us today. I'll leave you now. See you
Yes.
next time.
Thank you. What a great episode, Rebecca.
Yeah,
super
loved
cool.
it.
Thanks so much.
Bye,
Take care,
y'all.
listeners.
Bye.